it going? Welcome back to my channel, Gardening in Cold Spring Harbor. Welcome back to my home. Welcome back to Long Island, New York, Zone 7A. In today's video, we're going to talk about how you can grow and care for a potted cyclamen plant inside, indoors. Cyclamen plants are yet another holiday winter showstopper plant. It is sold widely in every single garden center as well as grocery stores. Cyclamen are known for their petite stature and their gorgeous, bright, luminescent blooms. In today's video, we're going to talk about Cyclamen Care 101. So for those of you looking for that online gardening channel that offers tips, tricks, easy, proven gardening advice to take your home gardens to that next level. Don't go anywhere, guys. Stick around with me today. Start with going below this video and clicking the subscribe button if you are enjoying the content of my videos, and want YouTube to send you notifications every single time I'll upload a new garden video. Click the bell icon as well. Now come with me, guys. Let's get gardening. And correct cyclamen care will reward you with some of the winter's most brightest blooms. Also, cyclamen make beautiful perennial garden plants and beautiful ground cover when planted and grown in the correct hardiness range zones. So cyclamen plants are only cold hardy in the zones 9 through 11. So the cyclamen that we typically see sold in our garden centers or even supermarkets or grocery stores, those cyclamen varieties, species, they are meant to be grown inside, indoors, in containers. They are not cold hardy enough to be planted or grown outside. If I were to plant my beautiful cyclamen that I have right over here outside in my backyard garden or anywhere outdoors here in Long Island, New York, Zone 7A, it would not survive. For those of you who are looking to plant and grow your cyclamen plant outside, you must make sure that you're purchasing the correct cyclamen species or variety. That cyclamen species must be cold hardy to be grown outside, outdoors. And there are over 23 different cyclamen varieties or species. 23 species of cyclamen plants, which may be very similar looking when it comes to the coloring of their blooms or even the shape and coloring of their foliage. The difference in the varieties of the species will determine their bloom time. As you can see, I have two cyclamen plants over here in my home. This one over here, the larger sized one, is fully done blooming. It bloomed for me in the month of December with beautiful, bright pink blooms. I have this cyclamen variety, which is in full bloom right now at the end of January. So now, the biggest mistake that many people, home gardeners, make when it comes to cyclamen plants is that they treat them as winter holiday annuals. Whether you're growing them outside in a warmer climate, a warmer zone, or you're growing them inside in a pot or a container like I do, cyclamen are perennials, which means that they come back and bloom for you year after year, sometimes even multiple times a year. So cyclamen grow and bloom from a tuber that is beneath the soil surface. So many of us, when receiving cyclamen as a present or a gift around the winter holiday season, whether it's Christmas or even Valentine's Day, which, by the way, cyclamen are very popular and famous for because of the coloring of their blooms, the reds, the pinks, the magentas, and then a lot of their foliage, the shaping resembles a heart shape, which is why many garden centers or grocery stores sell cyclamen around Valentine's Day holiday as well. So once the blooms fade, many of us make that huge mistake of tossing it out into the trash. No, guys, with proper and correct care, cyclamen will come back and bloom for you year after year and cheer you guys up during some of those coldest winter days. How would we know how to take care of this beautiful, bright, blooming plant? First and foremost, we must go back and think about where these stunners come from. Where and how do they grow in nature? So cyclamen is a Mediterranean plant, and in nature it grows in cooler, humid environments, which is exactly why the stunner blooms for us primarily during the colder winter months. So the cyclamen that are sold for outside growing uses or purposes are usually cold hardy all the way down to zone 5. However, you must always double check the tag, the instruction manual, to make sure that you're buying the correct cyclamen variety that is meant to be grown outside. The cyclamen that are sold inside the grocery stores or garden centers are cultivated and meant to be grown inside at home, because these will not tolerate any temperature that's below 40 degrees Fahrenheit. They will die out. Ideal temperature for house-grown cyclamen, for indoor cyclamen, is around 55 to 65 degrees Fahrenheit. So what can happen if you subdue your cyclamen plant to very hot temperatures? And anything above 70 degrees Fahrenheit is considered too warm, too hot for a cyclamen plant. Let me show you what can happen. The foliage, the leaves of your cyclamen plant might start to turn yellow. The yellowing of the leaves, if you're still seeing new baby growth, if you're seeing that your cyclamen plant is actively growing, producing new baby foliage, but some of the exterior leaves are starting to turn yellow, I highly advise that you check the temperature on your thermostat. And if the temperature is approaching 70 degrees or above, I highly recommend that you relocate your cyclamen plant to a room with cooler air temperatures. Cyclamen grows best in partial shade. It prefers bright yet indirect sunlight. So during the winter month, it would prefer if you place it on a south-facing windowsill or near a window that is south-facing. However, try to avoid bright, direct sunlight, or it could scorch the foliage of your cyclamen plant. If you want to keep your cyclamen's foliage glossy, shiny, deep, bright green coloring, you will have to upkeep with its humidity level requirements. So how can you do that other than dragging or carrying a very bulky, heavy humidifier around the house? You could either mist the foliage of your cyclamen plant daily. I mist the foliage of my cyclamen plants every single morning. Or you can place it on a saucer or a bowl, which is filled with rocks or pebbles, and you pour the water directly on top of those pebbles, which will help with evaporation, hence help increase that humidity levels. Always make sure that you don't place your cyclamen plant anywhere near vents or drafty areas, locations. Also, if you are going to keep your cyclamen in a room which will have temperatures, consistent temperatures above 70 degrees Fahrenheit, what's going to happen is your cyclamen plant will start thinking that it's already summer season. And what happens to our cyclamen plant during summer season? It goes into its dormancy phase. What is a dormancy phase when we're talking about our plants? Dormancy phase is a period of time when our house plant or any plant in general sleeps and rests. It uses that time to gather that energy, collect that energy. So once the next season, the correct season comes, it can wake up from that sleeping period and start to grow and bloom for us once again, which is hence another reason why you might start seeing this yellow foliage. Brings me to the next misconception, the next mistake that many of us home gardeners make, is when you start seeing this yellow foliage, the yellow leaves. Many of us mistaken it for the plant dying, thinking that we are killing our cyclamen, that whether we are doing something wrong, or again, that it's an annual plant and it's at the end of its living cycle, that it's time to throw it away. No, guys, when you are seeing this foliage turn yellow, whether it's some foliage, even all of the foliage, it's okay to use scissors or pruning shears or even a knife and to cut off these individual yellowing leaves. Because again, with a perennial plant, new foliage will grow right back after the dormancy phase is over. Now guys, let's talk about watering. How much water does our cyclamen plant need? Consistent watering is the key to healthy cyclamen plant care, especially during its growing and blooming phase. The only time when we don't need to water our cyclamen plant consistently, in fact, we don't need to water at all, is when it's during its dormancy phase, which I will get into in a few minutes. What is the best way to water a cyclamen plant? The best way to water a cyclamen plant is from below. You never want to pour the water directly underneath the foliage onto the soil top surface, because you are risking rotting, root rotting, or tuber rotting your cyclamen plant. Also, by watering from above, you are inviting fungal and bacterial disease. We always want to make sure that we water from below into a saucer, a plate, or a bowl of some sort. We allow the root system to absorb as much moisture within 10 to 15 minutes, and then we always spill out any excess moisture. So how often do we water a cyclamen plant? We always use our index finger to feel. So we always put our finger for about the length of our fingernail into the soil surface. If that soil surface, the third of the soil surface will feel dry, then it is time to rewater your cyclamen plant once again. If you do not consistently water your cyclamen, especially when it's blooming, you are going to see your buds your flower buds, your flowers start to wilt and start to die off and fall off your plant, all due to lack of consistent watering. So stay on top of your watering, guys, when it comes to cyclamen plants. Going back to what I said in the very beginning of this video, many of us receive cyclamens as a present from a loved one, from a colleague, from a family member, and we always think that they're an annual plant. They're not, they're a perennial. Another thing that's very common is cyclamen plants or any house plants that are sold around the holiday season tend to come wrapped or packaged in this paper, this gift paper, this foil paper, regardless of the coloring or how pretty it might look. The first thing you must always do is remove your plant out of this gift wrapping or foil wrapping and get rid of it. Why? Because if you are going to be keeping it in this foil and watering, any excess moisture will sit in this wrapper and it will contribute to root rot and crown rot. We never want to keep any of our houseplants in these gift wrappers. We always want to make sure that the containers they're growing in will have plenty of exposed drainage holes, which is the best idea again is to invest into a saucer or a bowl and place our cyclamen plant into that bowl for the best watering practices. Now let's move on to fertilization. How often should you fertilize your cyclamen? Should you fertilize it at all? And what kind of fertilizer should you be using? I consistently fertilize my cyclamen plants every roughly 6 weeks to 2 months. So once every 6 weeks to 2 months with a slow release organic fertilizer. However, the fertilizer which you will be using should be on the lower side in the nitrogen composition. So the NPK ratio, the first number in the ratio stands for nitrogen, the N. Nitrogen is directly responsible for green, lush foliage, leaf growth. And we do not want our cyclamen plant to produce too much vegetative growth. We want that growth to be subtle and consistent. So I always make sure that that fertilizer which I'm using is on the lower numbers when it comes to nitrogen. The only time that I don't fertilize is one, when I'm putting my cyclamen plant towards dormancy phase, which again I will get into in a few seconds here, and 2 is when they are full bloom. Because by fertilizing our cyclamen plant when it's either forming flower buds or blooming, you will disturb that natural flower formation and bloom phase. So those are the only times throughout the year when you need to stop fertilizing your cyclamen plant. Let's talk about soil and compost requirement for our cyclamen plants. If you are planting and growing your cyclamen plant outside outdoor, that is, again, considering your cyclamen plant is cold hardy. Make sure you choose a location with well-draining soil that will have slightly acidic pH level. That is very important, guys. If you are growing your cyclamen inside indoors, you must always choose a high quality potting mix that will have a balanced combination of good drainage as well as proper water or moisture retention. Many prefer to make their own soil mix by mixing compost, coconut coir, and perlite. That's a great way to save money and to economize, is to make your own soil mix. If you'll be growing your cyclamen plants outside, the perfect time to plant them outside outdoors is during the fall season. More established mature cyclamen are usually at that point potted up and brought inside to enjoy those beautiful, bright, vigorous blooms throughout the winter months. Also, by bringing inside, you are encouraging that brighter, more abundant bloom. If you are growing it inside and planting it inside in a pot or in a container, you must always consider what type of a container you should choose. It doesn't matter if that container will be plastic, basic, reusable, or fancy ceramic or terracotta container. What is important is the amount of drainage your container will have and the sizing. The sizing of your container should be no bigger than 2 times the depth and the width of your cyclamen plant's root ball. So when you're transplanting, you're always going to pull it out of an existing container and look at the root ball size. So the new container should not be too tight. In fact, it should be 2 times bigger than the size, the depth, and the width of your plant's root ball. You never want to suffocate cyclamen's root system by placing it in a very tight, narrow container. How often should you be repotting your cyclamen plant? Ideally, it should be repotted every 3 years. Now let's talk about that dormancy period that I just mentioned at the beginning of this video. Why is that period so crucial and important? That dormancy period, which is, by the way, only roughly about 2 months, will have a direct impact on your cyclamen plant's reblooming cycle. Without that dormancy phase, or putting your cyclamen plant through that dormancy phase, your cyclamen plant will not rebloom again. This dormancy phase is also the timing when many of us beginner gardeners start to think that our plant is dying off. Because many times during this dormancy phase, you might see some wilting of the foliage, some droopiness. You might see the foliage start to turn color to lighter green or even yellow. Many of us just think it's dying and get rid of it. No, guys. If your cyclamen plant is done blooming after the winter season, the next natural step for your cyclamen plant is to go through a dormancy phase. So how can you help your cyclamen plant go through a dormancy phase? The best thing to do is to trim off, cut off the spent blooms as well as the yellowing or wilting foliage all the way down to the root level, to the soil level. Don't be scared to do that, guys. You're not killing your plant. In fact, you're helping your plant by telling it that you worked hard enough. You gave me beautiful blooms. Now it's time to go and relax and take a 2-month long nap. So after you pruned off that foliage, where is the best place to put our cyclamen plant to help it go through that correct dormancy period? In a dark, cooler location. That location must have the least amount of light. Lamplight, sunlight, any light for that matter, as well as temperatures should be in the 40s. That is the most ideal temperatures for a cyclamen plant to go through dormancy phase. And we absolutely stop watering our cyclamen plant, and we stop fertilizing, and we leave it alone. Mark that date somewhere, guys, in your phone, on a sticky sheet, in your notebook, in your gardening journal. After 2 months, roughly 6 to 8 weeks, we come back. We take our cyclamen plant back to a brighter, sunnier, warmer house location. But before you do that, what do? You water your cyclamen thoroughly. By watering your cyclamen thoroughly, that will act as an alarm clock. It's going to tell your cyclamen plant it's time to finally wake up and start to grow beautiful new baby foliage once again. And this baby foliage, this new growth, is the first and the best indication that your cyclamen plant has woken up and started to grow for you once again. If that first year, if right away your cyclamen plant will not rebloom again, don't get despaired. Don't get scared, my fellow home gardeners. It's okay. Because that dormancy phase, which you just put your cyclamen plant through, was crucial and essential for the cyclamen's winter blooming period anyways. If you wouldn't have put your cyclamen through that dormancy phase, it would not rebloom for you the winter season. The topic of watering is always very, very tricky, very confusing. And it's always the gray area for many of us home gardeners, especially beginner home gardeners. So how much water should we give our cyclamen plant after we pull it out of its dormancy phase? We should always place our cyclamen plant in a tub of water for at least an hour. I like to place it in a tub of water for 1 hour. Allow any moisture that our plant needs to be absorbed from the bottom through the drainage holes. And then after 1 hour is up, I allow any excess water to be dumped out or spilled out to prevent any possible root rot. But that 1 hour of soaking will do wonders for your cyclamen plant. The next topic to mention is propagation. Can we propagate cyclamen ourselves? Should we run to the grocery store or to a garden center or a nursery and purchase various cyclamen plants, or can we propagate them ourselves? Yes, you can propagate your own cyclamen plant. How? When your cyclamen plant is in a dormancy phase, and that is when it's in a dormancy phase, we would never do the step when it's actively growing, and especially not when it's in full bloom. We remove our cyclamen plant from its existing container, we shake off any potting mix, and we expose the tuber. As I said in the beginning of the video, cyclamen plant is a Mediterranean plant that grows from a tuber, which is very similar looking to a dahlia flower tuber. Then we can cut a larger size tuber into smaller tuber segments. Now, if you are considering propagating, you must make sure that each of the segments which you will create or cut will have at least one eye or one bud on it. If your tuber segment will not have a single eye or a bud, which actually resembles a large size pimple a lot of the times, that is where the new growth will start stemming from. So without that bud or the eye, that tuber segment will not produce a new cyclamen plant for you. Now let's get into the last, but definitely not least topic when it comes to cyclamen plant care, and that is pests and or disease. The only pest that can cause problems or that is indeed attracted to cyclamen plants, and that are aphids. Aphids do tend to love sucking the juices out of the foliage and the stems of our cyclamen plants. So if you do happen to inspect the leaves or the foliage or the stems and you do happen to find aphids, don't get scared, guys. You can use soapy water mixtures or even horticultural oils such as neem oil and spray your plant thoroughly, and that will help kill off the aphids. Now let's talk about the disease. Are there any possible diseases associated with cyclamen flowers or cyclamen plants? The only biggest disease that I can think of is root rot due to fungal disease. And again, due to over-watering or incorrectly watering our cyclamen plant. Remember, always water from below. By watering cyclamen plant from above, you are creating that fungal, that bacterial environment, which will eventually lead to root rot or tuber rot, and we don't want to do that. Otherwise, cyclamen plants are beautiful and easy, relatively easy perennial house plants to grow and care for. And with proper care, they will reward us with beautiful, bright, gorgeous blooms multiple times a year. This is it for this video, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me here in my home in Long Island, New York, Zone 7A. In today's video, we spoke about growing and caring for cyclamen plants, whether you're growing them outside or inside in your home in a pot or a container. For those of you who enjoyed the content of today's video, if you found today's video to be useful, helpful, and or informative in absolutely any way, show me that support by clicking thumbs up below. Leave your comments in the comment section as well. Let me know, do you have cyclamen growing in your home or in your backyard? What cyclamen varieties do you have growing in your home? And if so, how do you care for your cyclamen plants? If you haven't yet subscribed to my gardening channel, Gardening Cold Spring Harbor, don't wait any longer, guys. Do so today. Super easy for you to do, super pleasing and rewarding to me. Just go below this video and click the subscribe button. If you are enjoying the content of my gardening videos and want YouTube to send you notifications every single time I'll upload a new garden video, don't forget to click the bell icon as well. YouTube will send you notifications every single time I'll upload a new garden video. Be healthy, happy, be well, each and every single one of you, and stay warm during these cold winter days. And happy gardening, guys, and I'll see you again in my new upcoming garden videos. Bye, guys.